I wanted to talk a little bit about people always are interested in or ask questions regarding interactions with other people. Relationships and relating to others and so on. And so one of the question that I've had a couple of times is, how do you find awakening has affected how you relate to other people? So I find that there's a deep appreciation of other people, as in they become part of the one consciousness. Essentially, they become part of you, and you can see that what's obscuring that understanding is our seeming differences and our seeming perception is being obscured, is being blocked or overshadowed by mind stuff. And you can recognise your true nature in other people, which kind of it gives a kind of deeper connection, a deeper, even though it might not be consciously mutual between the other person or people, but it gives us a deeper understanding and appreciation of other people. It makes our conflicts that we had with other people seem superficial, seem shallow and less heavy. But it makes it shows us that the positive connections and love that we have with other people is a reflection of our true nature. A break in the obstruction, a clear seeing. So what, a couple personal things for myself. So what I notice is that there's less social inhibitions. Your personality tends to come out more. False parts of your personality, let's say, that were there as a protection mechanism or a kind of defense, kind of fall away when they're seen for what they are, and that can have positive and negative effects. What I notice myself is that it seemed to have a calming effect on people in my daily life. So I seem to be particularly good at calming people down. So someone who is angry or upset or so on, before I would have mirrored that and I would have amplified those patterns in myself. But now it seems to be that these things are projected and they just kind of disappear, and it's like they're being projected out of the person, and then the person ends up stabilizing quite quickly. So for example, in work, when someone has a grievance, if I'm dealing with that person, then most of the time they end up calming down, relaxing, and then seeing a more positive point of view on the situation. That's just what I've noticed in comparison to before, whereas before I would have been aggravated by it. But at the same time, the need for people pleasing has kind of disappeared as well. People pleasing and social approval. So that can mean that I'm not polite where I would have been polite before. But equally, that lack of politeness isn't always perceived as a negative thing by other people, in the same way it would have been before, because the intention of not being polite or being rude would be behind it, if that makes any sense. So I noticed that people tend to open up to me about their emotions or their feelings or their problems much more frequently, just out of the blue, as if they feel like they can talk to me about these things and I won't judge them, which is true. I don't take things personally anymore. So for example, if someone is rude to me before, I may have taken it as a personal attack, whereas now it doesn't faze me at all. I don't take it personally, and there's no problem there. I'm just gonna make sure this ambulance can get by here. 2 seconds. Yeah, but people tend to open up about things that they which seems unusual compared to before, which I guess is interesting. I'm more inclined to listen to people's perspectives rather than, because I don't really have strong opinions, so other people's perspective and interest in other people's lives and what they're doing that's sincere, that wasn't there before, because I was too focused on myself. Yeah, so it removes inhibitions of all sorts that existed before, and it shows you that your social patterns, and it shows you why those social patterns are there and where they come from and what they're motivated by. Then it kind of gives the objectivity that allows us to observe these things. Pardon me. And that if it's needed to change them, whereas before we weren't aware of them, we thought that was us and we were kind of stuck in it. And just the general sense that everything's alright kind of rubs off on other people, I think. I mean, I still have arguments with my wife, but there's not that deep heaviness to it. There's not that. I still have ups and downs of mood, because, like I said, the person still functions as it always did. But they're not. They don't sway. They don't control my thought patterns, and they don't sway my sense of who I am. they're allowed to move as they like, and if there is a particular negative emotional reaction to something, typically it passes very quickly, and it's not perpetuated. It doesn't turn into hours or days and so on. I think the social confidence thing comes with it as well, because there's less thinking about yourself and how you relate to other people. There's less thinking about how other people perceive you. Like, for example, before I was really identified with my body and how I looked, what shape I was in, and how that compared to other people, how athletic I was, and all that kind of thing. And how I've not been exercising like I used to for such a long time, I've lost most of that physical stature and prowess that I based my identity and my sense of self-worth on before, because I've lost that egoic attachment to that as a way to seek my identity. And before, this would have made me depressed. It sounds ridiculous, but it would have actually made me feel depressed. And it would have been a disaster for me, and it would have destroyed my self-confidence and so on. But I see now that it was all an illusion and all an obsession, all a self-centered ego quest, that I felt that my self-worth was based on how I looked and how other people perceived me. And how that made me at the mercy of circumstances, how that forced me to put myself under stress, physical stress, and I felt like I had to do it because I would be losing something if I didn't. That's all gone now, and I'm not bothered about it at all. So now I can shift the focus away from that image thing and shift it into health, just being healthy, and it's much more relaxing. That competitive thing is gone as well. Like, there was a healthy competitive thing that I really enjoyed before, where I would compete with my friends or in sports and so on, and there was a healthy side of it, but I also had the very unhealthy side of it where again I attached my identity to that status, and then again my happiness and my identity was in the mercy of and depended on outcomes and circumstances. The need to control other people's perception is gone. The need to have people appreciate my perspective is gone. In saying that, yes, I have this YouTube channel. There's another motivation that's appeared that just wouldn't have existed before. Like, the thought of me filming myself talking on camera about this would be absolutely ridiculous, and I would never imagine it in a million years. But that motivation just appeared. But there's no need to. There's no neediness behind it. There's no, I have to convey this message have to get other people to understand. It's just talking about my experience and what I've learned, and that's it. And I think that this kind of community that's manifested of people who are interested in, let's say, spiritual seeking is refreshing, because everyone is moving towards something that's a extremely positive thing, and moving towards something that's not based in all that ego stuff, actively making the effort to transcend these patterns of ego and attachment. Is something the motivation behind that comes from a completely different place, compared to the motivation that is behind other communities that I've been involved in, which is just really nice. Another thing about the needing to the need from other people is that when you don't need things, it can sometimes come across as dismissive or avoidant, or like you're not interested in maintaining relationships with other people, whereas that's not the case. But it can come across as that, because if you have a needy friend, they're not going to appreciate you not having to talk to them. Not as if you don't want to talk to them, but just not having to rely on that person for companionship, although you do enjoy it when it's there. Which can present problems as well, I think. I can appreciate people more for their personalities and their differences and their just the way they are, even people you don't know, because everything becomes quite fascinating, and there's a sense of appreciation there that didn't exist before. These differences might have been seen as triggering or annoying or wrong, whereas now you can just accept people. I think that's a big part of the why I tend to be good at dealing with people who are angry or upset, because I can accept that, and I can acknowledge and show to them that I've accepted that, so and not resisting. So when you resist, it just builds a resistance, but when you're not resisting, you're just letting it pass, then that rubs off on them. They can express themselves and feel like they've been heard. I feel like they've been understood, and that's it. An example for this, so there's a woman who comes to the gym. I work I'm a manager in the gym, and she was disliked, let's say, because she had an aggressive or kind of standoffish attitude. So no one wanted to work with her, or no one wanted to interact with her, because she would always, complain or blame or so on. And I had booked her in for a meeting, and met her, and I just asked open questions, and that was it. I just asked open questions, and I just sat there, and she went off and she explained, and I was attentive enough. And when she went through a lot of stuff that was going on in her life at the time, which is obviously the must have been the reason, this accumulated frustration and anger that she couldn't express. And then when she'd explained this to me, she'd explained that she used to be a gymnast and a dancer, and she had an injury, she had surgery, and she couldn't do it anymore. And she was very frustrated that she couldn't find something that she enjoyed as much to express herself. And she totally broke down, and she was crying, and all this emotion came out, and all she needed was someone to just listen to what she had to say and appreciate her position with some empathy. And every time she came up against the mirroring of that kind of aggressive, frustrated attitude, it amplified that frustration, and it was just bouncing off. She couldn't let it go. But when she could offload it, she let it go, and after that she was super nice all the time. So it's just an example of how that's another kind of, I would say, form of social inhibition that goes away, if you can look at it like that, that defensiveness, of taking things personally, whereas most of the time there's no reason to take it personally. I mean, there's no reason to take it personally if it's intended, if someone say verbally attacks you and it's intended to direct it specifically at you. I can see now that there's no reason to take it personally. That sounds ridiculous, but it's true for me. So anyway, that'll do.